Hey there, welcome. I'm Jonathan Chapman Cook of JCC Piano Studio. This is my YouTube channel, and this is my first scheduled routine live stream. I'm really excited. I've been playing with live streaming a lot lately, and I'm finally buckling down and getting into a rhythm that's going to be consistent. And this is our first one. I'm calling this Free Improv Fridays. So I guess we can call it that too. So we can all call it that together since I'm calling it that. Um, anyways, free improvisation. So this is the art of sitting at the instrument, an instrument that you play or an instrument that you don't play or haven't played. Doesn't matter in this regard. And you make something, you create something, you make sound, you play. I think play is at the heart of improvisation, in the truest sense, that there's the kind of playfulness that you see in children when they sit down and improvise. Now, a 3-year-old sitting down and pushing the buttons and seeing what sounds come back is going to look very different than a master pianist sitting down improvising. And yet, in a certain sense, it's the same. If the master is in a certain place, a certain mentality, and that's the first thing I wanted to talk about today in between playing, which is something that's sometimes called beginner's mind. It's this mind of freshness, this willingness to receive information from direct experience, and to be willing to experiment, having an open mind. It's a listening mind, very much like the first time you go to a new place or a new city. You don't look at things the same way you do when you're in a normal place that you see every day. Everything becomes new. Everything is fresh. And whether you've played the piano for 0 hours or 10,000 hours or more, there is an opportunity to see and hear every moment as new, as fresh. And in a way that has to do with tuning into reality, perceiving reality as it is, because every moment is new. When it seems old, it's our brain dulling in a way into patterns, into habits, and seeing things in categories. Oh, that's an A, as opposed to, let's listen to that sound. Let's hear how long it can go. So if you're here listening, I want to encourage you in this next piece that I'm going to play, that I'm going to improvise. I have no clue what I'm going to do. You may be listening to this while you're working on some other things, having this on the side. But if you are really able to focus entirely, see if you can take a moment, even if it's just a little moment of your time, to just listen. Not thinking about what's happening, but just pay attention. If you have thoughts about what you think is happening, that's Jonathan playing the piano. Oh, he's really good. He can do that. I can't. All that kind of judgment, comparison stuff. It's okay to have those thoughts. We all do. But notice them and say hello to them, and then let them pass by and tune back into just the sound that you're hearing. We have a duet with a vacuum cleaner out in the hallway, it sounds like, too. The people cleaning the building in the morning. So that's fun. And yeah, I think I'll get right into the next improvisation, and encourage you to come along with me and Just pay attention. Just listen. Breathing helps with this too. I want to share a little bit of what I experienced during that one. Uh, this releasing from the attachment of thought is really this is borderline or possibly even whole hog spiritual exercise here of just paying attention to what what's real, what's present. Our minds categorize things and sort things out, and we're constantly in this mentality of categorizing, assessing, criticizing, judging, and I think many of us long for that pure experience, and this seems to be what music is about for so many people, is this ability to just immerse yourself in this pure experience that's just so wonderful, that releases us from the strictures of our enslaved minds. And I find that the piano is a place where I can release from that, but sadly, much of my life and many musicians I know, we bring that critical mentality to the instrument. Now, that's beneficial in lots of ways. If we want to really achieve technical mastery, we have to be able to say, no, I'm not using my fingers right, or no, those aren't the notes I want to play. But I think it's incredibly healthy to have time at the instrument that's just play, just free play. Next time you see a kid who just walks up and starts bonking on a piano, oh yeah, they're having so much fun. Do you remember doing that? It's the best. It's a piano. Oh my gosh, let's go play it. Why can't we have that? I don't see any reason why. From the beginning phases of learning to play the piano to the most advanced. Now it's easy for me to say, right? In some ways, yes. I have the privilege of thousands and thousands of hours of practice and all of that. And yet, I don't really see this as something that has to do with that. It is possible, and I could be doing this, to just always kind of destroy yourself with the instrument, to develop an unhealthy emotional relationship with the instrument. And that leads me to think that my number one goal of teaching, this is why I always come back to when things are starting to feel off a little bit in one of my piano lessons, is this servicing a healthy emotional relationship with the piano? Sometimes there might be too many challenges, too many scales to learn, too many music theory exercises to do. And so I always try to balance that out with something that the student loves to do. And I think that's really the most important thing that we can do, and that through doing that, doing what you love to do at the instrument, you will find work to do in that. So there's no danger there of stagnating just because you're doing what you love instead of what you should be doing. And all those things that you should be doing, learning music theory, are to aid some kind of, to facilitate some kind of understanding of the patterns or of the structure of music or of the sound of music, the relationships of tones to one another. And so that bridges me into the next improvisation I want to do, in which I'm going to preface this with a short music theory explanation. So on the piano, if you haven't studied piano but you've looked at it a bit, you've noticed that there's this pattern in the black keys. There's a group of 2 black keys before you have this set of 2 white keys without a black key between. And the pattern repeats. 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. So a lot of very young beginner piano lessons are just about identifying those groups of 2 and 3, and then learning songs that use those. There are many songs that you can play just on the black keys. Oh, and you can always sit down and play the black keys. It'll always sound good, and yeah, that's just a great way to play. I do that myself quite often. So, so there's the pattern of the black keys that we see repeating, and you learn to identify what the names of the white keys are by their relation to these groups of 2 and 3 black keys. So most people learn their first piano lesson is that you find the group of 2 black keys in the middle of the piano, and the white key just to the left of that is middle C. I generally don't teach that in the first lesson. I teach D because it's in the middle of them, and we call that the dog note. Actually, another very fine piano teacher introduced me to that, Jeff Kleinsorge. Kids love that you play all these songs that have to do with the doghouse. Boy, is that fun. Oh, and you can improvise with that, and kids always do. They say, oh, well, what if the dogs run around the block and they get, who knows what happens next. You can come up with all sorts of stories where you hop around the piano, playing the Ds or playing on the dog houses. So I wanted to point out that pattern of 2 and 3 black keys, and then take a big leap forward and talk about intervals. Intervals are the space between 2 keys. And how do you tell the space between 2 keys? It's by the number of half steps between those 2 keys. The number of half steps, and what half steps are every note on the piano, white to white, white to black, black to white. Whichever key is next, you can really tell if you play the keys up here, because whichever one's coming up next, that's a half step. There's an equal amount of space between each one of those pitches. And if you play just a half step next to each other, that's going to sound very much like a half step played anywhere else on the piano. If you add up 2 half steps, 1, 2, you can do that anywhere. Play this key and then count 1, 2. That's called a whole step. And it gets confusing because they shift based on whether you're on white keys or black keys. And then it goes on further. You can count 3 half steps. Those are all 3 half steps apart, and so on. Now, in traditional harmony in the Western world, traditional Western harmony, chords and harmonies are built on what's called thirds. And thirds are combinations of notes stacked on top of each other that are either 3 half steps or 4 half steps. So for instance, a C major chord is, you count 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, and you get a chord. You can do that anywhere on the piano. You get a D major chord by counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. So those are the kinds of chords built on thirds. And it gets more elaborate from there. But that's the basic harmonies are built on thirds, and it sounds normal, like a lot of music we've heard before. Now, in the early 20th century, composers became very interested in building new systems of combining notes, combining harmonies, combining intervals. And 2 of my favorite types of harmony are quartal harmony, where you build musical material, counting fourths, which are 5 half steps each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we can kind of mix around with those. Different combinations. of fourths. And I like combining that as an ingredient in all kinds of other harmonies as well. The other type I really like is quintal harmony, which is built on fifths, 7 half steps each. I like that. So I'm going to do an improvisation now that's based on fourths and fifths, quintal and quartal harmony. So this is where that knowledge, that study, that hard work that you have to do, where you do kind of get critical with yourself and say right or wrong, eventually becomes part of your vocabulary at the instrument. So this is a more advanced stage of improvisation. And I'm going to play for just a couple minutes here, and then we'll see if anybody has any questions. So I can see the live chat if you're watching and you have a question for me. Now is the time to think about that and type it in the chat. So we'll see if we get any. I haven't placed anybody in the crowd to ask questions. So, and if there are no questions, I'll just keep playing. I guess that was quartal, quintal stuff in C, uh, floating through a lot of different realms there. Um, Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so if you are watching the replay of this and you do have any questions or comments or thoughts, please do write them in the comments. If you are stumbling on this and you are not subscribed to the channel, be sure to do that so that you can tune in the future streams. So this has been Free Improv Fridays, and we'll be back with this next Friday at 9 a.m. Central. Thanks, guys, and have a great day.